Hello, today we are going to discuss discourse analysis and pragmatics. As you already know, the discourse analysis and pragmatics are closely related to the to the topic that we already discussed when we were speaking about linguistic and communicative competence. So you already know that not only knowledge of grammar rules, vocabulary and pronunciation are needed, but other elements of speech that are involved in a communication event. So we can say that discourse analysis, it's a very necessary branch of linguistics. We need to know it because it focuses on language use above and beyond the sentence. Well, I'd like to emphasize that discourse analysis is not a method for teaching languages, but it's a necessary. You as future teachers need to know, also include elements of discourse analysis in our teaching for our students. Be aware that all languages function in different ways. Discourse analysis is a general term for a number of approaches to analyze written, spoken, and signed language use. Discourse can be applied not only for spoken language but also for written and language of signs that deaf and dumb people use. Well, through discourse analysis, people can represent the world. Also, we may convey communicative intentions, what we want to say, and during this kind of communication is involved set of body language elements, and also through discourse we can arrange information so it's accessible to another. You know that when we speak a foreign language, we also need to know specific cultural implications, for example, and specific elements of body language. And we also need to follow some rules and to be correctly understood by speakers of other languages. That's why we need discourse analysis. We need to know how we can interpret what a person is going to tell us and use correct rules of, for example, in turn taking, which is the main element of discourse analysis. Well, and within objects of discourse analysis, we can mention that it's a writing language, talk, conversation, and all speech events. And they are defined in terms of coherent sequences of sentences, propositions, speech acts, or turn at talk. So this is turns at talk or turn taking are main elements that indicate how spoken language is organized. When we speak with someone, we can see or understand when is our turn to inject or introduce next idea, what I want to say, or understand when it's appropriate moment for a speaker to interrupt another speaker and introduce another idea. So speaking about discourse analysis, and people who or linguists who dedicate their studies to this, the main interest is naturally occurring language use. What it means that they do not analyze artificially created text or context to analyze it. Linguists, they work with real examples of language. They hear conversations, speeches in different situations, formal, informal, lectures, lessons, etc. And they analyze how these speech events work in different languages, in different situations, in different cultures. So main focus of attention of discourse analysis are, as I already said, spoken and written text. Well, when we speak about written text, we can mention that the main interest is who participants in the discourse are, what their relationship, and are they equals or not, what are the differences in power or knowledge between participants, and what are their goals. Well, when people speak, so we can hear a live conversation, we can hear intonation, and we can understand what the real meaning of what is intended purpose of speakers. If I use a sarcastic intonation or any other kind of intonation, so it's understood by partner what is a real meaning of what are the words. But when we have a written text, we cannot hear intonation. So writers, they need to use elements of discourse for us readers understand the real meaning. That's why linguists, they analyze these elements, how writers use, what techniques they use to express difference in intonation or difference in meaning, what is the real meaning of words written that are in a text. Well, also, speaking about written language, we need to know what is the writers and speakers mean, what is the real meaning of words, what are another factors that enable us to interpret the text, whether it's a new paragraph or some exclamation marks or question marks that help reader understand the real meaning. And what are some other clues that there are in the context or in surrounding text which help us understand meaning. And when we speak about spoken language, the main purpose of discourse analysis is to understand the real meaning of words, like language of services in counters, in shops, in banks, in restaurants, language of newspapers, language of everyday informal conversation, in any other speech event when the real conversation is going on, and when speakers use elements according to what they really want to express, and how we can use these sets of words. You know that every culture, every language, they have specific forms, how we can, for example, interrupt or start another idea or change our idea abruptly. For example, we may say or any other hesitation, or simply using our body language expression of our face, or we can raise a hand, or any other movement that we can use. It's all during a spoken when we have a speech event, a spoken event. So you can see the discourse is very broad and helps to understand a real message, real meaning of words, and it's studied by a broad set of disciplines like sociology, social work, social psychology, human geography, communication studies, linguistics, cognitive psychology, anthropology, international relationship, and translation studies. And translation is very, very important to be aware of differences to be aware of differences that exist between languages and speakers of those languages, and how we can use these cultural differences during translation, which is very, very important. So pragmatics, it's a branch of subfield of linguistics that's closely related to discourse analysis. And it studies how context influences in the interpretation of meaning, and explains how the transmission of meaning depends not only on linguistic knowledge, grammar and lexicon, but also the context of utterance. So speaking about pragmatics, we speak about meaning in a concrete context. Well, so for example, if I when I come, I have tomorrow I have a celebration. Great. Yeah, so it depends in what context I use or what intonation I use. I say, great, how can you understand it? It's something that bothers me, that I have to spend money buying presents, or what? Or I may say, great, yeah. So in what context? So you can see the real listener can perceive the real meaning of utterance. Context is very important. Well, so here we have another term, that's pragmatic competence. It's ability to understand another speaker's intended meaning, what a speaker really wants to say. So knowledge of pragmatics is needed to use language correctly. What it means, use language correctly? It doesn't mean the usage only of correct grammar rules, grammar, vocabulary, and phonology. No, it refers to ability of communicative competence, what we already discussed. It's use language appropriately according to a specific context. Also, it may help us avoid misunderstanding about meanings of some words, and especially when speaking with representatives of different cultures. And also, pragmatics helps us to be able to communicate, interact with speakers of other languages more naturally, to sound more in a more natural way. Pragmatics also focuses on cultural differences in context during the speech act. Pragmatics, knowledge of pragmatics allows us to understand and explain the differences found in many languages, and especially its between representatives of different cultural groups. It's a field of studies of interlanguage pragmatics. How it's appropriate, for example, to use a set of greetings, how I can greet representatives of different cultures. Is it okay just to say hello, or I have to use a very formal formula like how do you do, or what kind of intonation I can use, or what body language is appropriate when hailing someone according to different situations. So this is all that interlanguage pragmatics is about. Also, I can mention that concern of pragmatics, we can mention that people of different cultures may react differently to the same situation. For example, if I say you look great today to someone, so a reaction can be unexpected. In some cultures it's not appropriate to give compliments to someone. It's considered not polite, but in other cultures it's absolutely appropriate and okay, and a person may react, wow, thank you very much, I'm flattered that you tell me this. Well, so you see that it can vary from culture to culture, or this way of like farewells. I may say just ciao or goodbye, or I have to say have a nice day, or use another set of phrases that are appropriate for this or that situation. And in some cultures exists very broad set of phrases that are appropriate, for example, in addressing people, especially in some Asian cultures. I cannot use simply hello, how are you, or I cannot address myself, I cannot address to a person by his or her name, especially if the person is older or occupies a higher position or social status position. So I just have to say professor, or use a term or his scientific degree or something, but not using names. So, but for some cultures, saying by name, just calling person by his or her name, is absolutely appropriate and acceptable, and people feel even more comfortable being called simply by their first name. Well, thank you very much. It's very briefly about pragmatics and discourse analysis.